Okay, yeah, I can see the Cyrillic on the screen now.
Yeah.
That's quite handy. I know Giza, the Russian streamer girl who pops into my community now and again, she is quite a nifty bit of software that translates her Russian into English in real time.
Yeah, this it's probably the same software. It does 40 languages.
Okay.
And it costs us roughly about $13 US for 1 million words. So we can get about, how many shows we get? About 10 shows? Something like that?
Boy, I've forgotten.
Yeah, something like that. We get about 10 shows out of it for $13. So that's all right. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody, if you're listening, sorry about that. We had a slight technical hitch. I'll just grab this. You know that new computer I was telling you about, Michael? I got that all up and done, and then for some reason the card I got for the USB cameras doesn't work.
Yeah, it's always something that seems to happen. Like this new mic that actually you bought me, conveniently enough, as soon as I started using it, it completely screwed up all my audio settings that my previous mic had, and it just always happens is you change or you update one thing and then everything falls apart and you have to restart it all from new to try and get everything to work as it once did.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find Zoom here on the system here to add it. Yeah, it's really a pain, eh? That's just, you know, sometimes it'll go for 3-4 hours, no problems. And then sometimes for no reason, it'll just like, crash. It's very annoying. Very, very annoying. But we'll stick it on one screen and then we'll leave it there and then that'll be it. Give me a second. So sorry everybody, we're back on everywhere.
Yep.
I'll just paste that. Come on. What's happening?
I don't know.
It's not really doing. Sorry everybody. Again, why you should always test everything.
Look at it, it's doubling.
What is?
The
Oh yeah, I see. Okay, I know what's wrong. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second and we'll do that.
Boy, lots of
There he is.
fine tuning.
Yeah, okay. Zap him down here.
I should get a camera at some point.
Yes. Okay, so there's Mr. Lukashenko. Can you see the king on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Lukashenko looking at
The shells. Yeah.
shell.
Okay, let's start. Duke, off you go.
Okay, first video is Zakharova at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. And it's not just a photo. Normally we have photos, but this time it's a little thing. And she's talking about, for one thing, is moving the UN headquarters to Africa because of how these powerful countries have been exploiting actually the whole world for a long time. And of course, everybody's exploited by the US anyway because they have the world's reserve currency. But she doesn't talk about that. She's just talking about how come there's no sound?
Because you got to play it.
Oh.
See, now we've got another problem. This is going to be a great show, isn't it? Give me a second. Why is that?
Well, she's probably talking about reparations here. She's saying, that Africa has been exploited. And, of course, Russia's never had colonies.
Very interesting. Give me a second. Can you just talk about it while we're doing that?
Yeah, okay. She's mostly talking about, like the reparations things in the West mostly. And if you remember, it was mostly Great Britain and France, that did a lot in Africa. But, other countries, of course, having exploited other countries at other times. And as I just said, the whole world is exploited.
Это должна быть реальная переоценка и реальный вклад и реальная действительно. Впрочем, это не.
Do you want to read the subtitles? Because it's in Russian, obviously.
Okay.
Here we go.
Starting right now?
Yeah, go.
By the way, this is not a joke. I think that Africa, I will allow myself to say this, we state colonialism, the struggle of people for their rights. Africa requires compensation.
Вика, вы простите, я буквально позволю себе реплику. Мы констатируем колониализм, мы констатируем борьбу людей за свои права. Африка требует компенсации. Она не требует в
It does
качестве
not require
личных
just legal
исков, она не
claims or
требует в
endless
качестве
complaints.
бесконечного сетования на свою жизнь. Я имею в виду, когда говорю требует,
I
нам
mean, when it is
необходимо
required, we need to
отдать
give credit
долг
where
не нам как
it's due.
стране,
It's
а
not
миру
our duty,
перед
it's not our country.
миллионами людей,
But the world must
которые
acknowledge the millions who have
сотнями
served
лет
this Western dominance.
обслуживали вот эту западную доминанту. И это должны быть не хэштеги и не
And it
кампании
should not
а-ля
be
Black
hashtags and
Lives Matter,
campaigns like Black Lives
которые
Matter,
лишь
which only
еще
further
больше
confirm Western
подтверждают
hegemonyism.
западный гегемонизм. Это должна быть реальная
It should be a
переоценка
real
и реальная,
reevaluation of real contribution, a real, I don't know, not a
реальное
camaraderie, but an understanding
действительно,
of
ну
the
я не знаю,
inclusion and
какая-то не
educational processes.
компанейщина, но понимание, включение в образовательные процессы по всему миру этого
Around the
примера
world of this
и,
example, and
наконец,
finally giving
отдание
of depths
долгов
to the
африканскому
African
континенту.
continent.
И почему, например,
And
действительно
why,
не
for example, not to
сместить
shift the vector of the international
международного
negotiation
переговорного
process there
процесса,
and not in
процесса туда,
Switzerland.
а не в Швейцарию.
об этом речь, да.
Это никакая не шутка, это не желание как-то,
Somehow, you know,
знаете, там
stab
поднасолить
New
сейчас
York in the back,
Нью-Йорку
so
и
it's
так
not a
далее.
joke.
И это не обида от того, что
And it's
они не
not a
дают
shame
нам
that they
визы. Не в
don't give
этом
us
дело.
visas.
А
That's
дело
not
в
the
том, что
point. The point
континент,
is
который
that the continent,
столько
which
лет
has fed and
кормил и
given out
выдавал
resources for so
ресурсы
many years to ensure
для
Western
обеспечения
dominance, should be
доминанции,
compensated now.
должен компенсироваться сейчас. И это должна быть задача не
And
самого
this should
континента,
not be
который
the task
должен
of the
что-то
continent
требовать.
itself, which
А это
should
должно
demand
быть
something, but it should
осознание
be the
всем
awareness of
миром
the whole
того, что
world
нужно
that it is
отдать долг
necessary to give the debt
людям и сделать
to
это
people,
не по-клоунски
and to
в
do it
виде
not in
Black
a
Lives Matter,
clownish
а
way, in the form
по-настоящему
of Black
глубинно.
Lives Matter, but in a real depth.
Тем более, что сейчас
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not for reparations myself. Not, in monetary ways, but they have to do something for these countries instead of always trying to keep them down. As you see, the U.S., France and Great Britain and a lot of other countries, they try to keep these countries down to keep them from developing, in their own ways. And, maybe they should help them and maybe with constructing some factories and showing them some know-how on how to do certain things, maybe products that are needed in the West. But of course, that doesn't happen.
Michael, what do you think about that?
It's a bit of a broad topic. I mean, in terms of Zakharova's comments, I kind of think she's more just sort of part of the Russian geo strategy of trying to ferment anti-Western antagonisms through like this sort of neo-colonial victimhood mentality. I'm not saying that is necessarily wrong, because certainly the French, for decades after the nominal independence of its former colonies, especially in Western Africa, has maintained a pretty poisonous influence in many of the countries of the Sahel, which are now actually going over to Russia and Wagner to assist them in various insurgencies. I mean, in terms of I'm not in favor of reparations. I'm not in favor of this idea that Africa is necessarily hard done by, so therefore Western countries are obligated to assist them. I mean, former French colonies where the French never really left, I guess it's a bit of a different story. But I mean, in countries like Nigeria, former British colonies, to a degree, former Spanish colonies, and the like, where whenever independence came, there was some kind of tangential link with, say, the Commonwealth to a degree, but that was essentially the link was cut there. 60 years of independence, it's not really on Europeans as such to pick up the tabs for the failure of Africans necessarily. And also it should be said that not Russia, but its former state of which it was formerly a part, the Soviet Union and the United States, I'd say probably in a lot of these African countries kind of have a bit more of a moral debt in the terms of the proxy conflicts that they funded and propagated in the continent. But saying that, if there is a relationship that the West should have with Africa, if it should be seen as like an atonement. It should be seen as one between equal nations, done via trade, via equitable diplomatic relations, cultural exchanges between these states. A big example of this, excluding the French comments I've made, is if you're the European Union specifically, considering how in hoc it is to this concept of European and quote unquote white guilt for the past histories of European colonialism. If the European Union was really against that kind of looking to right the wrongs of such a perceived history, I would say that they could do away with the common agricultural policy, which completely undercuts particularly Western African agriculture via the exorbitant tariffs that are placed on external agricultural goods that are imported into the EU. And the biggest example is, ironically again, France, where French farmers are often paid massive subsidies to overproduce agricultural goods to keep, the prices on the European markets low, but also to prop up the French agricultural industry and then the excess produce of these farmers. It's not just France, there's other countries that benefit to a degree from this, but the excess agricultural products of this policy tend to be dumped into Western Africa particularly, which then undercuts Western African agriculture and prevents the development of African industries and African produce there. So, like I say, I would say if there's going to be like an equitable exchange between Western states, European states, and Africa, I'd say equitable trade between the two. I'd say maybe working around just that example there, working around agricultural tariffs to, one, make food cheaper for Europeans, especially considering the havoc that's happened to the global food market because of the events in Ukraine and Russia, and particularly the effect it had on grains that are produced there. Opening up European markets potentially a bit more to African agriculture could decrease the price of food for Europeans, but also maybe throw a bit of money that could be then reinvested into African agriculture to make it productive, to make it more efficient, to give Africans a bit more of a better standard of living, something that they can live towards, and hopefully in terms of the immigration question, hopefully keep Africans in Africa where they should be, building up their own countries.
Okay.
Okay. And Medvedev, we also have, but this is a photo of him. And days ago, he said, "It will not be possible to free Ukraine from the neo-colonial shackles of the West. After all, the objectives of the special operation are accomplished." Let's see, did I say that correctly? After all the... Well, I think what he is actually saying is that after the military operation is when you can start, to recover Ukraine. But obviously, the main problem in Ukraine has been for quite some time is the corruption. The place is indelibly corrupt. And I don't know, if it didn't run on corruption, it wouldn't run at all, I guess. And it's just, I don't know, like my suggestion was that, send, which I wouldn't want Lukashenko to leave here, but he's probably the only one that I can think of that would probably actually be able and capable. At least there'd be a great chance that he could get rid of corruption down there. He's the, I think Belarus, actually, as we just now mentioned, there's still some corruption here. But when he finds the corrupt people, they pay. It's not like in the U.S. or some other places where they get made to resign or something like that. The U.S. is full of corruption too. Look at Lindsey Graham and things like that, but we just don't see it. They try to hide it over there. Yes. But Ukraine was not doing so great when it was under Russian influence either. And like I said, it's because of the corruption. It's But after the special military operation, if they can, you can't really get rid of Nazism. I don't think that's going to be possible. Maybe you can shove them all over into Lvov in that area over there or something like that, and have the rest of it Nazi-free. And when you find Nazis, put them in jail too. But I don't know. Yes.
Michael, what do you think about the corruption in Ukraine? Do you think they'll ever get rid of it?
Probably not for decades. Ukraine especially seems to, outside of like Central Asia, Ukraine seems to be like its own league for corruption post the collapse of the USSR. I mean, Russia had it pretty bad in the 1990s. Ukraine arguably never seemed to have moved beyond that sort of anarchic 1990s gangsterism kind of period. It seemed to have maybe started to have somewhat moderated post 2018, but I think it was more they were just better at hiding it from Western benefactors, and potentially through things like the Burisma affair, probably including what would have formerly been skeptical Western eyes into that corruption.
I think that just added another dimension, putting in these corporations like BlackRock and Cargill, Rosemont, Seneca, even Rheinmetall. All these things that's just even more corruption. I mean, that's the bigger money corruption. And you got all the officials taking bribes. And I mean, geez, I don't know. Ukraine is someplace I wouldn't want to, try to stick my fingers into. It just sounds like it's just too corrupt for me to even want to even visit the place.
Yeah, I mean, Medvedev is he's kind of funny in a very dark way. He's quite funny in a lot of his social media posts these days. They're pretty sardonic. But I mean, whenever he talks about Ukraine sort of being like a colonial state, I think it's like arguably true. I think like each country should have its own independent sovereign will, but I think like that's what should happen in theory and in principle, but unfortunately reality and realpolitik isn't run by that. I think Ukraine, to a degree, like Belarus, certain countries in Europe and in East Asia just aren't able to be independent is because they're caught between two or a bunch of far larger powers with a lot more influence that they aren't able to properly be sovereign independent states themselves. But saying that, I think Ukraine is the future for Ukraine is probably going to be like in the worst Western version of that outcome, where Ukraine is going to end up as like, as you were mentioning, the various corporations that have gotten their teeth straight into Ukraine before the war's even ended. Particularly BlackRock, to me, is like the especially disturbing one that's trying to buy up all this agricultural land in Ukraine. To me, it's kind of depressing to think of. However the war ends, say it ends in a slanted to the west, is Ukraine is just basically going to end up as like this economic colony for Western crony capitalism to just effectively strip whatever's left of the country. And coupled with the demographic crisis that's enveloping Ukraine, and we kind of all know how the West solves quote unquote demographic crises. I don't know. I don't have high hopes for the future of Ukraine, unfortunately, which is tragic. As much as we say, and we have our problems with the various governments, heads of state, and political figures who are involved in this, it will be the average Ukrainians who will suffer the most of this. I think it's not fair that they are the ones through the war, but also going into the future. However the war ends, I don't see a particularly bright outcome for them for decades at least.
Yeah, I remember Zelensky even saying he wanted Ukraine to be a major weapons producer. So I don't know. It's just so many problems. Like you mentioned, demographics. Yeah, oh boy. That's one thing. And I've also just heard today that, again, there's a lot of the Ukrainian agriculture now, in spite of the farmer protests, now going into Europe again. So, and of course, that's going to be hurting the Western farmers over there anyway. Even if it's the product, as everybody was saying, is lower quality, I guess, pesticides. They use it too heavily in there, and there's even molds and all that sort of stuff in the Ukrainian products, and it's somehow lower quality, even though they have better soils for the most part. I really don't know. It just seems like it's, I mean, because we're not there. We're not, the facts on the ground. We're closer, like I said, than people in the West living over here, and then we might pick up some things that a lot of those people don't. But you can't really tell until you're actually right there. I've lived in places and seen things, and you see in the mainstream media that's all reported much differently than what the real truth is. So everybody should experience that. You even have trusted reporters, independent reporters. I've heard things like maybe even Redacted, and Redacted even knows now, since they've been to places, and they even say so that, you have to actually go there. You can't listen to what other people say, even people that you think you can trust. And I've seen people that I really, really thought I can trust, and they're reporting things, for example, about Belarus that weren't even true. And now that we're here, we already know it's not true. So it's really difficult, but there's no doubt that Ukraine is going to have some big challenges, and they're challenged right now. And that corruption, you hear about child trafficking and things that are done with children and drugs, and it's just anything that you can imagine, that could have anything to do with corruption. I guess that's in Ukraine. So that's terrible.
Hey, Michael,
Yeah.
do you think they're going to, the Russians going to keep going and go up to Odessa or
Kharkiv?
Well, I think the war is going to continue. I think that, I'm waiting to see the outcome of the US presidential election. I think that's the big deciding point. Depending on who wins, I think that will sort of very strongly insinuate which direction the forward flow of the conflict is going to go. If Trump gets in, I think that's whenever the pressure will start to come on Kiev to start to seriously consider a settlement of sorts with Moscow in terms of the conflict. If Biden, God help us, does get reelected, then I think we'll see a further escalation of the conflict. And then the war could potentially go on for another couple of years. In terms of, I think the Russians will continue to take ground. Maybe depending how things go in the future, they could taking that ground. It's not especially quick at the moment, but it could be quicker in some places. It could be at a slower pace. But I do think the general initiative of the conflict is now in favor of the Russians. It's been mitigated over the past couple of months because of the massive influx of aid that's come into Ukraine. But again, that's all going to be dependent on what the outcome of certain Western elections are. In terms of Odessa specifically, I mean, I've heard this claim for essentially since like March 2022. I personally cannot see the Russians coming close to Odessa. The Russians would have to get back to the western bank of the Dnipro. They then have to get over the Bug River in Nikolaev. Just geographically alone, Dnieper, because it's kind of dried out, maybe there is a bit more nuance there, but I cannot see how the Russians would cross two major geographical borders, open up a massive flank to the north, and then take Odessa. Not going to say never, but I don't think it's feasible in the near term or even the medium term future. I think Russian ambitions at this stage
has left the state.
Pardon?
No, sorry, go ahead.
I think Russian ambitions for the sort of medium term future would be reclaim more of the Donbass. Particularly, I'm looking at places around Chasiv Yar, that city to the south of Chasiv Yar, Konstantinivka, I think it's called. Potentially start to push further into parts of Kharkov. If there's like a big city that the Russians, that is potential for the Russians to take, I'd be looking at more at Kharkov rather than Odessa, because I don't think Odessa is a pretty feasible option anytime soon for Russia. But I do think that the Russians will continue to nibble away across the front from Zaporizhia up to the Donbass, at least up until the elections. And depending on the results of certain Western elections this year and into the start of next year, I think next summer might be sort of the big crunch time whenever they're, could see a very large Russian offensive that might break the back of the Ukrainian army, or else maybe the war will just continue along this rather frustrating and depressing attrition that we've seen for the past year.
Yeah. And did you see that video, the interview with the president of Serbia?
I'm afraid I've not had the chance to watch it.
Oh, we'll just play it. I'd like to play it now and get your comments and thoughts on it. If you just a second, give me a second. Okay, here we go.
Train has left the station and no one can stop it. And it looks like that. And I believe that we are getting close to the last days of possible rethinking and reconsidering of everything that is happening in Ukraine. If those big powers don't do anything in a short period of time, yes, I'm pretty much certain that we'll face a real disaster. If you bet on a fact that someone is bluffing, it means that you have no better cards. But you just believe that the other side has weaker cards. And you're not sure about it because you don't know and you didn't see his or their cards. Everybody is speaking only about war. Nobody wants to reach the peace. Nobody speaks about peace. Peace is almost a forbidden word. And please notice this. Because they say we need to win in order to secure future peace, but nobody's speaking about a peace, and then, okay, you negotiate it. But you have the other side, you have to have the other side on the table as well. It's, it's very strange to me that no one is actually attempting to stop the war. There is another theory, which I can understand, which I don't say that I do approve, but I understand that West thinks that they can win easily against Putin. They want to exhaust him in Ukraine, and then they will enter the space, and then Russia in today's territory and shaped like it is today won't exist anymore, and Putin will be overthrown and everything else. Yeah, maybe that's possible, but
do you think that is possible? Is it possible to use Ukraine to weaken Russia?
Well, it weakened Russia anyway, but is it enough to destroy Russia and to overthrow Putin? I don't believe so. In today's Europe, they all act like big heroes, but they did not say to their people that they will pay a very big price. And speaking about it, you and all these leaders should do absolutely everything in order to stop any kind of warmongering behavior and everything. Why I'm speaking that we are getting close to the precipice, to the abyss. Analyze the situation of NATO and the United States. They cannot afford themselves losing war in Ukraine, which means Russia cannot win. Because, first of all, their political legacy will not exist, or it will be so poor that they cannot allow themselves. Number two, position of Europe and the West, collective West, in geopolitical terms, will deteriorate so much that no one would be able to revive it and to renew it. And number three, it will open Pandora's box for more movements, at least, and hostilities against collective West in the future. But take the other side. That's a nice story for one side. But take the other side. If Putin loses the war, Russia will not exist and won't be shaped like it is today. I mean, when you have these two sides so much far from each other, with their wishes, with their expectations, then you see that everything is at stake. Everything. No one can afford to himself or to itself, to themselves, to lose. When you have this situation, that's why I was saying to you, that's why I was saying publicly and not hiding it, that we are getting closer to a real disaster.
Right.
Who is ready to lose 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 and 15 million people? Ask yourself. I'm not ready to lose a single man, and we won't participate in that. But it's a question for some other people.
How close are we now to a third world war, a confrontation?
I cannot say a third world war, but that big confrontation, how far we are, I believe that we are not far away from it. Not more than 3-4 months. And there is a danger to happen even before that.
Where do you stand in this whole insanity? Where does Serbia stand in this conflict?
We'll keep peace, stability, and tranquility within the region and in our country.
Michael, what do you think about that?
There's a lot to cover there. I think Vučić is able to view this with sort of an outside perspective. Obviously, Serbia is a close ally of Russia, but it is also an enclave within Western powers, within NATO and the European Union. He also has a very close relationship with Orban, so I think there's a lot of what he is saying is also reflective of Viktor Orban and Hungarian position. I agree with him in quite a lot of respects. I think Russia, particularly, Moscow is invested in this conflict to such an extent that it cannot broach a concept of defeat. And I think the West is also, certain regimes in the West, certain countries in the West are of the same mindset as well, which is kind of why we're at the loggerheads we are. This is why I cannot really conceive the idea of Western and Kiev's view of a Ukrainian victory, because in the hypothetical, as remote as that seems, say if winds of the battlefield change to such an extent where Ukraine is on the verge or has reclaimed Donetsk and Luhansk and is about to push into Crimea, I do not see how Russia could tolerate that. I don't think that is possible. I don't think Ukraine is capable of achieving that. But if that was a scenario, I don't think the Russians could broach that. And I think that is whenever we would see a escalation of a nuclear variety in alliance in accordance with Russia's nuclear doctrine, which specifically states like the integrity and the protection of the state itself. Well, if essentially 5 oblasts of the Russian Federation are effectively about to fall to a foreign power, quote unquote, I think that's whenever you would start to see a lot of panic in Moscow and where they would go to such extreme conclusions or potentialities. On the Western side, I think it's not quite a similar scenario. I think it's in some regards it's a more insane scenario, because like there's 3 countries in particular, excluding the Baltics, because the Baltics and Poland are their own thing, and even then the Poles have kind of stepped back from it. But the United States, United Kingdom, for my country's fault, and France seem the 3 countries that seem to be intent on escalating the conflict instead of trying to de-escalate it. That's not to say that the Russians aren't escalating it itself in certain regards, but the provocations and the openness with which the United States and France and the UK are escalating the conflict, like flying drones right up to the border of Crimea within an hour of Ukrainian scalp or Atacam missiles.
Lastly, the self-centered
Crimea. It's like, well, we all know what's happening there. Or these claims that the French are going to start deploying troops to Ukraine, but not in a combat role, but in auxiliary positions in Western Ukraine. Well, how is that meant to go down in Moscow? Or whenever the British are leading the charge in, say, well, Ukraine should be allowed to fire Western-made and Western-supplied ballistic missiles into Belgorod and into the internationally recognized quote-unquote borders of Russia. Well, these are radically escalatory statements. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I think the Russians, for a number of reasons, I think that these escalations keep happening. One, because I don't think the Russians are able or can enforce their red lines against these escalatory actions. I mean, like, how would Russia stop the drones off Crimea? Well, we'd have to start shooting them down, and then that would be a military confrontation with the United States, because it's often American drones that are flying. Obviously, shooting down an unmanned drone is better than shooting down a manned aircraft, but nonetheless, that would be an escalatory measure itself. But the point remains is that the West, certain Western states keep escalating the rhetoric and the tension around the conflict, particularly as Russia tends to start to take the initiative and starts to take more ground. That's whenever you see the West really start to, well, certain Western countries really start to ramp up the tension in it. This is where I go back, where Vučić is saying, I think if that was a recent interview, which I'm assuming it was the last couple of days, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep, that time frame where he expects a confrontation in the next 3 to 4 months. Well, to me, that sort of said, well, that lines up with certain elections in the West, which, going back to my previous point, I do think that we are on the road to, as it stands at the moment, I think we are on a very dangerous road, playing with very dangerous fire that could blow up in human civilization's face. But I do see an out of this in, again, going back to a couple of upcoming elections. The British Conservative Party has been resolutely through and through in favor of escalation, has been completely behind Kiev with no caveat at all. Well, they're about to be decimated in an election. While the Labour Party, and God knows I am not a fan of the Labour Party by any chance or any stretch of the imagination, but the Labour Party, yeah, it's pro-Ukraine, but the rhetoric that's come out of it since the conflict has happened is nowhere near as verbose or as aggressive as being the incumbent government. So that's kind of one leg of this sort of Western stool that's kind of going to be knocked out in the next couple of months. Emmanuel Macron seems to be on course for a potentially humiliating election result in the National Assemblies, where I know they've moderated their position since the war in Ukraine has begun, but the National Rally has traditionally been a more Russophile party than a Atlanticist party. They are looking to pick up a lot of seats in the National Assembly and potentially deprive Macron of his majority in the Assembly, also bolstered by the French far left, the old Communist Party, the old Socialists, who also amongst them have quite a lot of Russophile. I don't know if that'd be the correct term to use for them, but I think the French National Assembly could be potentially pulled out from under Macron's feet, which could potentially hobble him and his policy towards Ukraine. And then potentially in November is we might see the removal of the Biden administration in favor of the Trump administration, which Trump's hard to pin down exactly where he stands on the issue, but I think I think Trump would be a bit more skeptical of Zelensky and the policy towards Ukraine than the open checkbook that the Biden administration has. Of course, the Republican Party in the United States is resolutely anti-Russia, but if the president himself can potentially rein that in a bit, this is kind of what I'm trying to get at is I think Vučić is looking at these elections with the time frame he's given, and I think that's kind of where he's kind of placing it is these elections in particularly these 3 Western states could be one of the last hopes that we have to try and mitigate this runaway crisis that we seem to be propelling straight into, to where instead of just constantly pouring fuel into this fire, is maybe it's time to start putting pressure onto certain actors within it to say, look, you're never really going to get Crimea back. You're probably never going to get the Donbass back. Maybe it's time to start thinking a bit more rationally about what can actually be achieved here.
I don't know if you saw this on April 14th. It's what Putin had to say.
The self-centeredness and arrogance of Western countries have led us to a highly perilous situation today. We are inching dangerously close to a point of no return. Calls for a strategic defeat of Russia, which possesses the largest arsenals of nuclear weapons, demonstrate the extreme recklessness of Western politicians. They either fail to comprehend the magnitude of the threat they are creating, or are simply consumed by their notion of invincibility and exceptionalism. Both scenarios can result in tragedy. It is evident that the entire system of Euro-Atlantic security is crumbling before our eyes. At present, it is practically non-existent and must be rebuilt. To achieve this, we must collaborate with interested countries, of which there are many, to develop our own strategies for ensuring security in Eurasia, and then present them for broader international deliberation. This is the task set in the address to the Federal Assembly. To outline a vision for equal and indivisible security, mutually beneficial and equitable cooperation, and development on the Eurasian continent in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably not going to work. Kind of a solution. It looks like there's, it's more like what Vučić was saying, that, both sides have their stance where they want to be. And he said it's existential for Russia. And in truth, it's only just a matter of pride for the West. Oh, if they lose, that makes us look bad. And Russia, will change forever if they lose.
It's like this video from Blinken saying Russia's failed.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
Bottom line is this. The Ukraine strategy that we've had and that we've been acting on individually and collectively now for nearly 2.5 years is showing effective results in making sure that Ukraine can ward off Russian aggression, and it's done that remarkably. Keep in mind, Putin's objective from day one was to erase Ukraine from the map, to end its existence as an independent country, to subsume it into Russia. That has failed.
Right, erase it. Is that what the Minsk agreements were about? I thought that was about the Donbass staying with Ukraine, and it was 8 years and all those people that died, and that has nothing to do with erasing it from the map. But anyway, so that's pretty much ridiculous talk. That's how these used car salesmen, politicians actually try to hook some people in. They act like it's everybody knows that Putin has been trying to erase Ukraine from the map.
It's like Stoltenberg.
Wow.
But that doesn't mean that I see any threat or any risk, imminent risk for a military attack against a NATO allied country.
Oh, he said he doesn't see a risk of it, huh?
No.
Well, it's probably not by Russia, but because why would Russia want to attack Poland? But look at Duda. What did Duda say just a day or so ago? He's calling for the decolonization of Russia, and he's calling for for all the ethnic groups in Russia to revolt. He says it's the biggest colonial power on earth and in history. Russia is, or something like what? I don't know.
And Lavrov is...
No, we don't
trust.
ask the West to trust us. Trust is not something which is illustrating the Western positions, the Western actions, and today there were many examples. I don't want to recite those failures to deliver on the promises, those failure to deliver on the legal obligations. Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not. The West must understand the real situation. They don't understand anything except real politics. Let them go to the people. You are democracies, right? Ask the people what the West should do in response to the Putin's proposal.
Yeah. Well, he's absolutely right. But you have all these leaders, these puppet leaders that are installed, such as Duda, and they're doing everything for Masta in the West.
Hey, Michael, do you know why Duda's got a bug up his ass with Russia?
I think it's just part of that Polish historical enmity towards Russia. That's what I chalk up to.
But is he the brother of the is he the brother of the guy that got died in that plane crash?
No, that is Lech
Oh.
I can't remember.
Oh,
his second name.
Walenza.
No.
That was the previous president. No, it's the same party, but it's a
Lech Walenza.
different guy.
No, okay.
Not Lech Walenza.
No, I mean, there is a long, historically verified antagonism of Poles towards Russia that's very deeply ingrained in Polish society, which penetrates quite strongly into its politics as well. The Smolensk scare disaster is widely seen in Poland as like a Russian attack on Poles as well, which probably doesn't help the feelings. So I think it's just part of. Well, one also Poland in of itself. Poland is a rising power in Europe. It's got one of the most rapidly expanding militaries in the European Union. So I also think one, you have this historical antagonism with Russia, which is mostly projected towards Belarus because that's the common border they share alongside Kaliningrad. But also you have this growing strength, this growing power that is Poland and Warsaw that is willing to, well, I think it's more trying to demonstrate its growing capabilities and its growing confidence within the European Union and as well within NATO as sort of like NATO's eastern bulwark.
And please, massa across the Atlantic. Yeah, show that they're willing vassals, like the Baltic states.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is something I've commented on quite a lot in my channel over the years. Like, I'm a big fan of Poles, quite like Poland, love Polish culture, been to Poland a couple of times.
Nice place.
Yeah, it is, and well, I have quite a beneficial view of all Slavs, to be honest, or pretty much all Europeans as well. But it has been quite disconcerting and disheartening to see since the conflict in Ukraine has began, is just how, I don't want to use a garish term, but just how willingly and openly Poland opened itself to everything and all influences that the United States could provide, especially considering the previous Polish government is what was meant to be and was often signaled across Europe as like this based right-wing conservative nationalist government, but yet it openly and willingly allowed like the US State Department to fund LGBT pride parades in small Catholic villages in eastern Poland, or to implant 2,000 US soldiers in these small villages and towns in eastern Poland, which would just flood the local communities with like the worst excesses that just Western culture can impart on a naive population. It's been very depressing.
I noticed in Ukraine they had a LGBT pride parade and it was broken up by Ukrainians.
Yeah. They started
the
to
sector
go back.
of all people suddenly reemerged.
But I don't know, like if you look at the Polish, like what you're saying and all that, I don't think that for example, security services necessarily, border guards, I'm not sure, but police, I don't think they support that stuff either. But they're very Nazi-ish when it comes. I mean, I'm talking about the border police and even the police. The people, I don't really know. Some people say negative things about Polish people hating all foreigners and things, but I don't know. But it just seems like nearly everybody I talk to that goes through there, they're talking about, how brutal and bullying the police are and the border people and all that. So many people have told me that, but I don't know. It's terrible.
I mean, my only experience really was, so I went, my best experience would be I went to Poland with Black Pigeon Speaks, a couple of other friends for the Independence March in 2022. And I got stopped randomly in the airport to have my currency checked, which wasn't too bad of an experience. But then I was drinking in public, which I didn't know was an illegal thing in Poland. And then a Polish police officer came up to me, asked for my ID, told me, like, can't drink here. Please do it around the corner where we can't see you. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, that's not
So,
bad.
you know, my experience has been quite good, but I guess if I did something to piss them off, I would expect it would probably be probably would deserve it though.
Yeah, maybe it depends on the nationality of the people. Like the ones I talked were Indian and even Belarusian, Indian, and what else? Indian, Belarusian. Anyway, different various nationalities. Like I think African was one
There is
person.
quite a lot of Belarusians
Turkish.
in Warsaw. I did make a note of noticing that you're actually stopped in the street by Belarusian exiles collecting for a charity, and the amount of both flying the current actual flag of Belarus and also the white, red, white distant flag of Belarus. There's an awful lot of cars without those license plates in Warsaw.
Okay.
That's that commander, yeah.
Yeah. Do you wanna-
Yeah, he's got a different view than Blinken about what's going on in
This guy?
Ukraine. Yeah, Blinken thinks that they're winning, but here's a commander, and this is, I guess, on Ukrainian TV. Listen to what he has to say.
Зараз ми програємо цю
Так.
війну.
Oh,
Зараз ми програємо цю
we,
війну.
I forgot somebody has to read it. Yeah, he's talking about the war, and he's saying, we are losing. We're losing, lose the best people. You know, what is the situation? The critical moment? Gosh, why is it going so fast? You got it on speed or something? Is that guy talking?
There you go.
Well, anyway, he's talking about, you know, how they're losing, you know, a lot of people. It's been 2.5 years of fighting. For me, this war hasn't been going. This is a part that I don't understand. It has not been going for 2.5. I look at it broader. Listen to this. In the context of hundreds and thousands of years, if we are talking about fighting at this moment,
То, якщо ми говоримо про цей момент загострення, то це зараз
then this is the most critical moment.
найкритичніший момент. Чому? Тому що, по-перше,
Why? Because first of all,
ми бачили події, відчували їх на собі,
we were all able to see,
а люди могли можливість бачити, спостерігати події Авдіївки, після
before Avdiivka, after Avdiivka,
Авдіївки, там ледь не
Before and
прориву
after.
фронту
when the enemy broke through.
противником. І зараз
And now we are having a moment of relaxation.
наступив момент певного заспокоєння.
Really?
Тобто, ніби
Like the situation has been stabilized,
ситуація стабілізована, хоча вона не
even though it hasn't been.
стабілізована, ситуація продовжує бути
It continues to be critical.
критичною. Але от
But in the
у засобах
media
масової інформації і там, на
and on deep state map,
діпстейт-мепі, да, от люди ж дуже часто
people like to look at that deep state map
люблять оновлювати діпстейт-меп і робити якісь висновки
and say that
собі. Здається, що вона
the
стабілізована.
situation is stable,
Я вважаю, що це
like Blinken.
найкритичніший
But I think this is the most critical moment
момент, оскільки це знову
and
момент
not a time to
розслаблення.
relax.
Зараз люди вчергово
People
подумають, що от, ситуація
They managed to stabilize
на
the
фронті
situation at
вдалося
the front.
стабілізувати, ну куди вони ще максимум пройдуть.
They are now
може,
not
там,
going
They-
to move forward and maybe take a couple more places in Donetsk and Lugansk
Донецьку і Луганську область завоюють, десь ще трохи.
or some other small places, whatever.
А давайте переговори
Let's negotiate.
перемутити, а давайте ще
Let's do something
щось
else.
зробимо. Ну, от,
There is no unity in the society.
немає єднання у суспільстві. Тимчасове, да, от,
This stabilization
стабілізація немає справді
won't achieve any breakthroughs
сьогодні таких проривів, які були раніше,
that we saw before.
хоча той результат,
The results we see
який є
today
сьогодні, він досягається
are
виключно
only
на
achieved
ентузіазмі
because of the enthusiasm of the people in the trenches.
людей в окопах. На превеликий жаль,
They are exhausted.
Виснажені в тому числі.
Ну, дуже виснажені.
Very
На превеликий жаль, от, результат показує,
The results show
що далі буде тільки
that it will only get worse from here.
гірше, якщо не буде ніяких змін.
Yeah. What is he talking about? Hundreds, maybe 1,000 years? They've been, what, like fighting Russians when Ukraine never existed? It's existed like
I don't know if
1
that's
year?
like
Huh?
even if that's an accurate translation, because I don't know if he's like saying like since Ivan Rus we've been fighting Moscow or something. It's like I'm not too sure if that's an accurate translation or not. I'm a bit baffled by that as well.
Yeah, it doesn't. He says it, but he's saying more than 2.5 years, and I'm thinking, well, what? And like in World War I, the Western side was on the Russian side. I mean, the Western side was on the Nazi side, and the Eastern side was on Russia, on the Soviet side. Yeah, Ukraine actually, I don't know how did it exist in that form? Lenin had already given the Donbass to, the region called Ukraine, and none of them wanted to be ever a part of Ukraine, so they were rebelling the entire time. And Crimea, that came on in what, 1974? No, 54.
56.
Well, I think it was maybe 54. And anyway, it's like, I don't know. These guys are all filled with indoctrination anyway, so you never know what part of what he's talking about is an indoctrination in school, that Ukraine is this great empire that built the pyramids in Egypt and spawned Jesus and all kinds of stuff like they tell them, and I don't know. So maybe he's just talking about that sort of a thing. But anyway, there has not been a fight for thousands of years, or 1,000, not even, I don't know. I mean, this one is maybe, for the most part, started at least in Lvov, maybe a little even before World War II, but mostly in, for the most part after World War II, when the Bandera offshoots and things were supported by the United States to go after the Soviets at that time. Anyway, I'm just guessing. So what about Rod Stewart?
Yeah. Michael, did you see the Rod Stewart concert?
I didn't see it, but I've seen the reports about it. Typical Leipzig. If there's a place in Germany where this was going to happen, of course it'd be Leipzig.
That was in Leipzig. Leipzig are mostly pro-Russian, yeah, because that's in Saxony. I've been there quite a few times.
It's very much a case of at least reading the crowd before you make a certain statement as that.
Yeah, he would have had a lot of success, maybe Frankfurt or maybe Munich, maybe probably Hamburg and all those kind of places, but not in Leipzig or places over there. That's on the eastern side, former East. They're more pro-Russian. I used to have a house there, so anyway.
And just just Googled Leipzig, and I have to say that considering the story, the city flag is a bit ironic.
Yeah.
If you want to Google it and bring it up on screen.
Yeah. Oh, these glasses are from Leipzig.
Are they?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Duke used to live in Germany for a while.
So did I. I used to live in the west, in Minden and Gütersloh.
Where?
Minden and Gütersloh, the old British sector.
Oh, Gütersloh. I don't even know where that's at. I know the name, but I just don't know where it's at. Gütersloh. Yeah. Okay. So we play Rod Stewart.
This one?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is Sarah from
You're the real angel.
P.P. Escobar.
You're not the angel that was re-recorded by that asshole Rod Stewart. Meets the sky.
You want my body.
Pepe.
Nobody wants your body, asshole.
That's funny. Light side of those guys.
Yeah.
So, I can understand, I support Ukraine, but then to take that into I'm going to salute an effigy of Zelensky on stage, it's just really, God, how out of touch do you have to be? Oh,
yeah.
Bro. Celebrities are a bane.
Yeah, he's on the wrong side of Germany, like we said. He should have been over on the western side. He might have got a lot of traction, but I think the people were booing him in Leipzig.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. Well, here's a video. Next one. I love this video. This Chebos. Yeah. He's talking about Zimmerman. I remember seeing her around, but I don't know her actual position anyway. But
who?
What's her name? Maria Zimmerman. She's something in the government, and I don't even know what her position is.
Fortunately, Deutschland has turned into a show too, but this time it's the Fourth Reich, and it's Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, Marie Agnes, if you would like to be absolutely correct about her full Monica. She's an absolutely insane, warmongering fruitcake. Now, this is not Ursula von der Leyen with the makeup off. This person is at the forefront of Germany's remilitarization. We must now, this is too real. She wants to recruit 1 million men and make it absolutely obligatory to seize them.
Yeah, watch what he does with his hand.
Ob sie es hören wollen oder
Look at
nicht.
that.
Slava Ukraini.
Look at the hand. Check the hand. You will fucking say Slava Ukraini if you like it or not. Can you believe this? Can you get this? You will say Slava Ukraini if you like it, or I must not do the signal to my friends.
Is this a Green Party politician? The Greens in Germany are
Yeah, you know, I'm not too sure. It sounds like it would be a Greens, but you never know. They're the warmongers.
Of all the people to have become like the most militaristic towards Russia, like the Green Party was not on my list.
Yeah, me neither. I that was such a shock, and it's like, and then I start thinking, oh, green is an army color. No, I don't know, just kidding. But I don't understand it either. The war party, the Greens, the war party.
They were also the ones who kind of led the charge behind the denuclearization of the German energy grid, and then it's like, well, but now you also want to cut off all your hydrocarbons from Russia. It's like a bizarre party, just bizarre. That's probably why they got wiped out. Well, not wiped out, but tanked pretty heavily in the recent election. But it's just a bizarre group. Like, Green politicians across the world, wherever they are, Green parties always tend to be like this most idiosyncratic, bizarre group of insane individuals with the most contradictory policies and worldviews.
Yeah. So they've always had some crazy things and then some good things mixed in, but this war stuff, I tell you what, that's really, that was like you said too, it's a very big surprise.
So what was the name of that politician?
Well, I was thinking, I remember her as Maria Zimmermann, but he said Agnes, and then he said, to be more correct, Marie. So maybe it is Marie. Maybe he made a mistake and her name is Marie, really, but he was saying Agnes something Zimmermann. Yeah, I have to look it up, I guess.
Marie, oh no, she's a liberal. She's part of the FDP.
Oh, the FDP.
Yeah.
That's they get even less support than the Greens, and I guess maybe that shows why. I don't know.
It's a good thing I googled her because I was a chalk her up to Green, but no, she's more liberal.
So yeah, they're normally around 5% of the minimum of the FDP. They have to have
last time I really paid attention to them was they got wiped out in was it the last Bundestag election? I can't remember. They got completely wiped out. It fell below the threshold. That was the last time I paid attention to them. But now they're back as apparently pro-war, ultra pro-war party. Ultra pro-war liberals. That's actually surprisingly a common thing in Western country.
Yeah. More about Germany. We have a photo that I was talking about it last time. It's about what Chebo had put up. Anyway, if you have old Bismarck, pretty cool photo. It's not, the days of Bismarck are gone. Anyway, but it's a nice picture of him. He was a Junker, some of the higher class of Prussia back in those days. And as you know, he is actually the one that consolidated Germany. He basically created the country, and he was the Prussian Diet, I guess, or Diet or whatever, which was the government of Prussia at that time. And it was William I, which was the father of Kaiser Wilhelm II, but anyway, Kaiser Wilhelm II dropped him. I said last show, even in 1890, and they call it the dropping of the pilot. And then that's the beginning of all the alliances that old Bismarck set up, to where Europe couldn't go to war. Everybody had these alliances, one with the other, and everything like that. And it started to.
Europe could do with another man with the stature of Bismarck, a person with such visionary view of realpolitik and being able to balance the powers of Europe and pretend, well, obviously there's the Franco-Prussian War, but, you know, the French needed to be taught a lesson. But, yeah, I mean...
Well, that started because it was the French trying to teach Germany a lesson. It was...
yeah.
Hohenzollern, which is... you know, you could call it the royal family of Germany, even though there was Prussia at that time. The Hohenzollerns were the leaders of Prussia. So in other words, his boss, you know, was a Hohenzollern, and they actually had a right to Spain. They came to the throne, so to speak, of Spain, and France did not want a German power on each side of them, so they actually, you know, incited a war with Germany and around that time. And then at that same time, Germany actually became a country. So immediately...
Well, I mean, it kind of just says enough of modern Germany that obviously in the insanity of the West, we've had things like roads must fall, the tearing down of statues of historical figures. In Germany, there's a campaign that Otto must fall. They want to tear down the statues of Bismarck. People, this guy who nearly founded the country.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. You could call him the founding father of Germany. But, I mean, the modern Germany, well, it's not even modern. It was 1866 when he was in the Prussian Diet, and then Germany came around about 1870. So actually, the United States is an older country than Germany, but in that sense. But anyway, it's just a lot of historical stuff, an exciting time back in those days. And Dave was mentioning, I think we were talking on the phone, and he was saying there's a lot of these correlations between the lead up maybe to World War I and the lead up to this possible war that's probably going to be starting, you know. And
yeah, I'm reading a book called Churchill, Hitler and the Unnecessary War.
Yeah. Also at that time, it was economics. Germany was in a huge boom. And like the house I had was built pre-World War I, and there was lots of them, real nice, beautiful houses. And Germany was getting very wealthy, and they were starting to build the submarines. And you know, Britain ruled the waves, and they did not like Germany. You know, Germany was just actually getting a bigger and bigger navy without really even trying. And Britain was really struggling to keep up with Germany. And even though, like I said, Germany was just kind of just doing it normally and didn't really know that there was a race going on. So I think, you know, Britain got real nervous, and, you know, that was a big contributory factor to the beginning of World War I. So, of course, Bismarck was gone by that time anyway.
Let's go back to Ukraine. What's this?
Yeah. This, what is this, a mobilization probably?
Oh, they're still doing this?
Yeah, we always throw a couple mobilization videos in. Proud volunteer, ready to defend Nazism. Got a lot of friends. Look at everybody wants to touch him. Are they dancing? Jeez, look at this. Off to a...
Did you see that, Michael, did you see on the BBC they were talking about this?
Yeah, I was about to say this. This has become such an issue now that the BBC is even having to regularly talk about it.
I think I have that.
Depressing.
Yeah, give me a second. I'll play that.
Oh, the one from the BBC. Yeah, I saw that. I don't know why I didn't put that up there. Or did I? No, I didn't.
Ukraine is facing one of its most perilous chapters since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, with Moscow's offensive getting ever more intense. The Ukrainian army desperately needs to enlist more troops, but more than 2 years into the war, is struggling to find willing volunteers. Our correspondent, Jean McKenzie, reports from the city of Odessa.
At Sergei's wedding, it wasn't just the weather that didn't go to plan. Half of the guests didn't show up. Going out in public is now too risky for men who don't want to enlist. But the bride, Tanya, understands why her friends and family don't want to fight. Her father was killed on the front line.
Are you afraid that you might be caught and sent?
Yes, I'm afraid. I'm also afraid.
Of course I'm afraid too, and don't want it. It happened twice in my family.
Public transport has become a no-go for those trying to avoid the draft. Conscription officers have a fearsome reputation for dragging people off buses and taking them to conscription centres. These officers are on the hunt for draft dodgers. It's hard to find willing soldiers these days, so now it's the law for men to register so they can be called up.
Are you part of the problem? Because people are hiding from you. They're scared of you.
Look, some people react aggressively towards us. Others run away from us. This happens often. I don't think these people have been well brought up.
They haven't been well brought up. Maybe they've been very well brought up.
These guys are having a pretty difficult time finding people who are eligible to serve, and they do accept that some people are hiding from them, but they are urging men to come forward because they say everybody has to play their part in defending this country.
Your blood has
Behind
to
these walls, men are hiding at the very moment
go
the
into the
Ukrainian
soil.
army needs them the most. Russia, with its superior manpower, is on the offensive. This is Vova.
Actually, they're
He
not
won't
on the
leave
offensive.
the house without checking these social media groups, which tell him where the officers are.
I don't walk outside at all now, unless I'm with my daughter, because they don't take people with their children.
The Ukrainian army says that it needs people like you to fight if it is to win this war.
I'm not a military person.
He's speaking
I've
Russian.
never held a weapon. I don't think I'd be useful on the front line, but I know if I get drafted, this is where I'll be sent.
These men who are hiding, I don't consider them men. What are they waiting for?
Vlad was badly injured serving on the front line.
If we run out of men, the enemy will come to their homes, they will rape their women and kill their children.
Right.
Recruitment posters line the streets of Odessa. The message, together to victory. But Ukraine is now divided between those who are prepared to fight and those who would rather run or hide. Jean Mackenzie, BBC News, Odessa.
Did they say fight or get bombed? Go into the meat grinder.
Hey, Michael, they're trying to, that obviously they're not going to do it. Say subscription in the UK, you can just see no one signing up, eh?
I don't. Well, I mean, conscription you don't really sign up, but if they do try and bring in conscription into this country, I think we all know which parts of the country and which demographics they're really going to be going after, and which ones will be conveniently not. Put it that way.
The Irish.
Me personally, I will not go and fight and kill Russians who I probably have more in common with than the people who are sending me to go and fight and kill them. Than with the new Britons that this country is being flooded with by this current government.
Yeah.
So Putin's in North Korea?
Yeah. Huh. This one is, did I put this one? Or
Yes.
Okay. Oh, this is some of the media from the West reporting on Putin's visit to North Korea.
Two of America's fiercest adversaries together on North Korean soil.
Oh, no.
Vladimir Putin arriving in Pyongyang for the first time in nearly a quarter of a century, greeting the Russian president on the red carpet, Kim Jong-un, talking animatedly, each leader insisting the other enter the limousine first. Kim and Putin met once before, last year in Russia, but this North Korea trip, with hours of one-on-one meetings planned for Wednesday and the streets of Pyongyang lined with Putin's portrait, sends a strong signal to the West that the so-called axis of dictators is only growing stronger. While the U.S. says Putin's trip shows desperation in his fight against Ukraine, officials make no secret that Putin's public embrace of Kim is troubling.
Desperation? Putin's desperate? That's why he went to Ukraine? I mean, they went to North Korea? Desperate? Desperation? Yeah, that's what Rutte said from the Dutch Prime Minister. We'll hear him say that too in the video. But
And he's off to Vietnam. in the next day or so.
Yeah, does he want the Vietnamese to go fight the Ukrainians or the North Koreans? And actually, it's all mostly about economic cooperation, and they're part of it is, I guess, what is this called? The Comprehensive Agreement or something between North Korea and Russia, and part of it is some sort of assistance if the other country gets attacked. And so obviously, it does not include what's going on in Ukraine right now between Russia and Ukraine. North Korea is not going to be sending troops over there, at least. I'm sure that's not in this part of the agreement. So there's another one, I think, from the West we put up there too, right? Two of them?
Mm-hmm. That's great one.
Yeah, but all of this stuff, exaggerations and twisting and spinning and all that, some of these things get pretty funny.
Just thinking that Kim Il-sung has been quite busy since he's taken over North Korea. I mean, the amount of diplomacy that man's been involved in. He's had Trump cross DMZ, and now he's personally waiting on showing Putin around Pyongyang.
Yeah, what a reception, huh? Huge crowds.
Coming together now. And this is what you saw today in those pictures. Welcome to the Cold War 2.0. We now have Russia and China declaring that they have no limits to their friendship. You now have Putin, who's going to North Korea, clearly with the approval of China. China decides what North Korea does and doesn't do.
No, that's not true.
And so they're now cementing their alliance, their axis of evil, if you will. And it wasn't just Putin going to North Korea. This was a summit meeting because Putin brought all of his top leaders, his foreign minister, his defense minister. They're there to talk about their military relationship, their economic relationship, and how they're going to scramble the United States. You know, and the BRICS, you know, a number of those countries are what we used to call the third world. This is the global south. And that's what China and Russia are looking at. They realize that the most economic growth is going to come from those parts of the world in the next 20 years. And that's where they're focusing their efforts. They're not as worried about Europe.
It's not because they blew up the pipeline.
They really are concerned with who wins the global south. That's South America, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa. That's where they're putting their effort, and that's where they're putting their money. But the other thing is, why do they have the money? This is a really important point. President Biden enriched Iran. He enriched Russia because of his energy policies. You have to. Oil was $120 a barrel
Putin's intelligent.
In the Obama administration. President Trump comes in, unleashes American energy. Oil goes down to $40 a barrel. Biden comes in, undoes everything Trump does. And where's oil? Back at $80, $90 a barrel. Now, what does that mean? Because those high oil prices give Russia, and up again today. And what does that mean? Russia's richer. They're all coming to.
Oops. Michael, your opinion on what they're saying?
Sure where to begin with it. The idea. I mean, it's just that kind of American partisanship where it's like, well, the Biden administration did this, so therefore the Republicans wouldn't have done it. But I mean, the Republicans are kind of invested into like hydrocarbons as much, if not more, than the Democrats. Maybe the Republicans would have invested a bit more into domestic supply. But I mean, this idea, like, it's also this couching of everything, this bizarre American. Well, it's very much a Republican thing. The Republicans are very big on it, where everything ultimately leads back to China, where the war in Ukraine is actually the Chinese are behind it, or Russia's détente with Pyongyang. Well, actually, Beijing is behind that because they okayed it. And it's like, I mean, yeah, the Chinese are smart, but I don't think they're this god tier intelligence that you guys make them out to be. I hear Republicans as well. Rubio is very big on this idea that we have to support Ukraine to the hilt because if we weaken Russia, we therefore weaken China. And it's like, okay, so hundreds of thousands of Russians and Ukrainians need to die so you can, in some way, in your mind, diminish Beijing. Like that, it's this bizarre.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
This is why I don't watch like mainstream Western news, or print. This is why I don't have really any network news as well. It's just so.
I think the U.S. and they're not doing a very good job of it. I think they think that they're going to create some kind of similar conditions of what it was like after World War II. That's why they blew up the pipeline. And they're going to impoverish Europe. And so they don't have the cheap gas anymore or coal. Put Russia against Europe, and so that way they can weaken Europe and they can weaken Russia at the same time, and then they're going to get more concentrated on China, but they're also concentrating on, they just have too many coals in the fire right now, and they're trying to go after everybody, thinking that, oh, since we're doing so poorly, we'll make sure that everybody else does poorly, so that makes us actually look good. I mean, that's the impression that I get, I don't know. There's all kinds of different ways to look at it from different perspectives,
It doesn't harm the alliance to dictate. Like, obviously, Kim Il Sung is like the archetypical dictator, and I wouldn't say Putin is a dictator. I'd say he's certainly an authoritarian ruler. But I hate this narrative of, like, the Conservative Party in the UK, especially today, came out with these abysmal adverts about how there is this new alliance that threatens our freedom between North Korea, Russia, and China, and I'm just sitting there like, right, you might have some freedoms more than the average Russian or the Chinese in certain ways, but at the same time, like, you did lock us down for 2 years over the dodgy vaccines and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how much you can say on it. I don't know if this is on YouTube or.
Yeah, we're running on YouTube as well.
Okay, so I can't really. Well, there you go. Can't really. I don't know if we can still even talk about those issues, but also, if you talk about the wrong demographic or the wrong sexual preference or gender identity, is in many Western countries you could be arrested and imprisoned for that. It's like, it swings and roundabouts here. Like, well, we need to defend our freedom against, like, the Russians. Well, in Russia, I can say these things. Yeah, I can't say certain things in Russia because I'd be arrested. But it's like, I just hate this.
Yeah, but you can't say certain things. You can't say certain things in the UK as well, and you get arrested.
Yeah, that's exactly
it's the way everywhere.
About. Like, if I was to criticize,
talk about the Holocaust in Germany, and that you don't.
Yeah, I just hate this constant narrative. Like, we need to defend our freedom. It's like, that's barely anything.
What got me was this woman saying, "Oh, North Korea will do anything China tells them to do," which is completely, absolutely untrue. Actually, even before this meeting, North Korea had great admiration, and love for Russia. And, because the one thing is that Russia helped them in World War II, and to get rid of the Japanese. And there's not really that much friendship between North Korea and China. And you never hear about it. And as a matter of fact, I think there might be some antagonism. So this woman, I don't know. I'm assuming she's some kind of an expert when she doesn't know what.
Yeah, it's like North Korea, like the Chinese have been, especially since the collapse of the USSR, the Chinese sort of assumed a quasi, like, benefactor role of the DPRK, but that was like a benefactor role. It wasn't like the DPRK became a puppet state of Beijing. It's never been that relationship. It's where the Chinese have recognized, well, it's probably better to have this sort of pariah state between us, our border in Manchuria, and between the American troops based in South Korea. That's probably beneficial for us. And also, maybe we could use, or not we could use, but maybe the North Koreans could create, through their various antics, certain diplomatic incidents or international crises that would have people looking at them rather than looking on stuff that we might be doing. But it was never this case where Kim Il Sung went cap in hand to take his orders from Xi Jinping.
Right.
It was just kind of like a mutual beneficial relationship where, like, the North Koreans
neutral.
provided good Beijing with a buffer state, and then the Chinese were like, okay, we'll do some trade with you. But, like I say, it goes back to this idea where this bizarre, like, Cold War mindset where, well, we don't like communists, but the Russians aren't communists, but we don't like Russians, but the Chinese are communists, so therefore the Chinese communists must be behind everything. And it's like, like, guys, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a hard time, tracking these people and what are their mindsets and where are they coming up with this stuff. You know, it's basically, I just noticed the USA wants to dominate, and they want to dominate everybody, and anybody that's, you know, the more that anybody goes against them, the more they're against them. So you better.
Yeah. And I mean, like, in a certain, like, this is where I don't think a lot, like, if you are of the mindset that China is like the big enemy, this is where I don't get a lot of these really war hawkish people in the West, and especially the United States, aren't like major Trump fans, because Trump's geo-strategy was actually pretty visionary whenever you think about it. Like, he wanted détente with Russia to bring Russia out of the cold and therefore potentially detach it away from Beijing. He had this very bizarre but surprisingly effective personal relationship with Kim Il-sung, which I think was also to that mindset. Again, I'm not one of these people who thinks that, you know, I do think China, there are problems with China, but I don't think like the Chinese are about to invade the West or replace our government. Like, they're a rival, they're not an enemy. Not that's how I view them. You know, like, they're an economic rival, they're a political rival, they're not a military threat. But at the same time, it's like Trump, if you have that mindset, like Trump had the, you know, his policy was affecting that. You know, like, what other president or Western leader could ever have had that relationship with Kim Il-sung? Like, none of them. Who, that personal relationship he had with Vladimir Putin. And even then, how the entire state apparatus in the United States was working to undermine his efforts, particularly regarding Vladimir Putin. And it's just like, guys, and people still don't see this. It's like, well, maybe if you didn't obfuscate Trump in his relationships or his attempts to form a dialogue with Moscow, maybe we wouldn't have this war in Eastern Europe. Maybe Trump was trying to prevent that. Maybe he was a bit visionary, you know, to see and try and prevent stuff like this. Like, I believe, like, if Trump was still president, if he, you know, well, the 2020 election, well, the less said about that, the better. I think we all kind of have an idea of what went on there. But had Trump still remained the incumbent president, I resolutely believe that there would be no war in Ukraine. I think that would have been prevented, because I think Trump would have said openly to Kiev, you're not joining NATO. We can have agreements, but, like, I'm going to be open with you. You will not join NATO. You're not going to be a NATO member. And that would have, I think, pretty much would have deflated, and also deflated any provocations that Moscow would have received from this drive for NATO membership with Ukraine. And also, I would believe that a lot of the personal diplomacy that would have went on between Trump and Putin probably would have prevented any de-escalation and then the conflict itself in Ukraine. But of course, the orange man is bad, so therefore we have to ignore all this and just go along with the dementia-ridden basket case in the White House and his drive to global thermonuclear war.
And speaking of the dementia guy, listen to this.
As the Congress and Homeland Security Secretary, I'm not sure going to do so.
Gosh dang. I mean, this guy's doing this constantly. Oh, and then what did Jean-Pierre, the press secretary for the White House, saying? Oh, those are deep fakes. She said it's somebody's making deep fakes of Biden doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Man.
I've got a compilation.
Makes you wonder when he had that debate with Trump when at the beginning of that election, what kind of drugs they had him on so that he wouldn't be doing that kind of stuff.
Oh, they must have pumped him full of. I'm waiting to see what he's going to be like in these debates, because you can physically see the deterioration of the years.
Yeah, that it's 90 minutes long and they've got 2 breaks. Is that for the 2 breaks so they can pump him full of drugs each time?
Yeah. Believe it or not, Putin can stand for much longer than that and stand in front of a podium for like 3 hours. It's incredible. But these guys, I don't know. I mean, Biden, definitely not. They have to change his diapers probably after about 90 minutes. Yes.
Let's be honest, the guy's a puppet. There's no way that man is running.
I've been always saying that. I don't.
Here's another one in the last couple of days as well. I don't know if you've seen this one.
Are you worried about the war? Are you worried about what's happening? Are you worried about the war?
What did he say?
I don't know. Row.
That's what he said, huh?
I mean, it says something like, what age? He's in his 80s now, his mid-80s?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Andropov, Chernenko, Brezhnev, they were sprightful youngsters whenever they died compared to this man. It said something whenever the late Soviet Union had a more youthful leadership than the United States.
And did you see the one on who was on stage with Obama? He sort of froze up and Obama had to lead him off. I'll just get rid of the music for YouTube. But look, he's just standing there. Like, come on.
Come on, Grandpa.
This is desperate.
Yeah, look. Yeah, I'll just guide you out.
I've seen him on the stage, somebody else leading him out too, not that long ago. Because he was just standing there and looking at the audience with a smile on his face.
I would love to know what Obama said to him.
Huh?
And even then, like, Obama didn't rate him very high. Like, what was the famous quote? Never underestimate the ability for Joe to fuck things up or something. Wasn't that the famous quote that Obama came out with?
Yeah.
I think I did hear something about that.
I got a compilation of him as well.
Do you speak any English?
We added more jobs, over 500,000 jobs this last month, and
Today, Junior?
more than half the women in my cabinet, more than half the people in my cabinet, more than half the women in my administration are women.
Question is, what's the other half?
If you try anything to raise the cost of producing jobs, I will veto it. We've united the Asia.
I don't think so. I don't think that happened.
We're tired of being played for suckers.
How ironic.
3 congressmen you have here, 2 of them look like they really could and did play ball, and the other one looks like he could bomb you.
That sounds even more racist than it is.
You had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
Wait, what did you just say?
That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
He has cancer.
$200 billion.
Sir, that's not a number.
We go back a long way. She was 12, I was 30, but anyway.
Pedophile! I'm kidding.
I know where the power is.
Power? What power?
Lost
I know
in
where
space.
you think I'm joking.
I'll go get Dawn.
No. If they have to pay out $159 billion let.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
We went for 2 reasons. One, to
froze up.
We lost him, sir.
stop your boast about never being seemed at what you can do anything.
That you do.
Seemed at what you can do anything.
You could do so.
Being seemed at what you can do anything.
You want him to do you so much you could do anything.
Hey.
How'd you get this job?
But my focus is just stay focused.
Gosh dang.
Now I feel better.
Gosh, that's a good compilation there. Wow. Yeah.
Looking forward to the fortifying of the election we're going to have to do to ensure that he gets it.
Do you think they'll dump him after the debate?
It's too late. They're stuck with him. The primaries are already done. They can't, unless he physically dies, I don't see how they can replace him.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to throw anybody in the last minute. I don't know. Maybe he'll fall when he's shuffling up to a microphone or something.
Yeah. I guess
There is a non-zero chance that he could just basically die any day now. You can tell the man is not well.
He seems to be getting worse as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Trump, I mean, like, don't want to fanboy for Trump because he certainly has his problems, but like Trump's a ball of energy compared to this guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He may be. This is always talks. That's right. He talks about Putin.
Who's this?
This is Rutte. He is the.
He's going to be the new NATO guy, right?
Well, it's so far. I mean, it's very, very, very close. And Stoltenberg even says so. I think there's only just 2 countries that have not yet okayed it.
Let me say, Hungary's one of them?
No.
Yeah.
No, they made an agreement with Hungary, believe it or not, that he will keep the same deal that Stoltenberg did. So that when Stoltenberg had a deal with Hungary, that Hungary does not have to go along with any wars in Ukraine and all that. And he said he'll honor that.
Yeah, but Michael, isn't Article 5, it's not a definite. It's just like you can help if you want. Is that how it is?
Oh, so Article 5 of NATO is like, if your country is attacked within the territory, so it gets kind of complicated whenever you look at it. But so like, if a NATO member inside Europe or North America is attacked by a foreign power, then all other members of NATO are obligated to come to their defense as if their own territory was attacked. So this is why, like, whenever Argentina invaded the Falklands, that was not an Article 5 issue, that was not a NATO issue. But whenever, like, 9/11 happened, you know, if you believe the official narrative, that was an Article 5 and a NATO issue. That's why, like, Afghanistan was a NATO operation, because the Article 5 was triggered because a NATO member within the territory quantified by it.
Yeah, I thought the treaty said that countries, you know, obviously help, but it's up to them how they help.
Yeah, it is like that, but
I mean, they don't have to go to war if they don't want to. You know? That's what I mean. They can supply helmets or something, you know.
I mean, from my understanding, is like pretty much they would be obligated to go to war. Like if you pulled out, if you somehow tried to finish it, like say just hypothetically that say the Russians decided we're invading Poland, and then let's say like Spain was then like, well, actually we're not going to commit militarily to this. I don't think that would be feasible. I mean, I don't think it's ever really been tried like that, but I think Article 5 by its nature is very much like it's military obligation to it, but military obligation in the defensive. So let's say France sent military troops into Ukraine and the Russians bombed them and attacked them. That, from my understanding of it, that would not be an Article 5, because that is France. You know, those troops are being attacked. You know, French troops are being attacked, but they're being attacked because they themselves are engaging in what could be perceived as like aggressive and defensive actions.
Okay, what about if F-16s were in Poland, they were flying from there into Ukraine and touching down and then taking off again, like just touching down, not actually stopping, and then attacking Russian assets? And then Russia responds by
Poland,
taking out the airfields in Poland,
which they said they would do. Or Romania.
Is that a grey area?
Sure, but I think that's kind of one of these issues where a lot of countries would tend, like, countries who are itching for a fight with Russia would say, yes, this is Article 5. But then countries who are a bit more skeptical on it, like Hungary, would sit there and say, well, no, you are provoking the Russians into this. This is the Russians acting defensively against offensive action launched from a NATO state. But again, I'm not like a lawyer of it, so I can't really give a legal assessment of the treaty, but that would be my sort of understanding of it.
Okay, let's see what Mr. What's his name?
Rutte, I guess.
Putin yesterday came out with this silly peace proposal, shows you that he is clearly panicking. So that's good news.
Because he had a peace proposal, he doesn't even understand what the whole deal is. Right before Zelensky's, but it's not anything to do with any kind of panicking. You know, and Russia's, even though they're not on the offensive, I mean, officially Russia has said that they're gaining ground. I mean, just by, you know, just doing the same thing they've been doing the whole time. If they wanted an offensive, I guess they would have to really, really push. And then, of course, they would be losing men. So Russia doesn't want to do that. Oh, look at this. This is a funny video here. This is when they take the piss out of you. Here.
Ukraine's peace is Moldova's peace. Slava Ukraini.
Look at that. She's got these sexual desires. Was it for Zelensky, the Ukraine's piss and our piss, my piss, or something? What did she say again? She's my piss with Zelensky's
No, I noticed
piss.
the Italian Prime Minister was saying, the woman was saying that Russia has to surrender.
Maloney, Giorgi Maloney, huh? Jeez. Yeah,
this is the problem with the Russian peace proposals set out by Putin are obviously unacceptable to Ukraine, but then again, the peace proposals set out by this Ukrainian peace conference in Switzerland are completely unacceptable to Russia, and it's like, well, this is kind of the impasse.
Yeah, well, actually, what Zelensky's is a demand for surrender, surrender and give up everything. Putin goes to war crimes. Reparations should be paid. All troops withdrawn, even though all this kind of stuff. It's basically saying Russia must surrender. That's not a peace proposal. It's terms of surrender. That's all it is. So, oh, look at this. Here we go. Yeah.
What's this?
This is, they're saying something like how history repeats itself. That one on the right is an American soldier. I think that was, during the Iraq thing, and then they're showing, celebrating with dead bodies or something, and, the torture sort of stuff. And this on the left-hand side is an Israeli, hot babe, Israeli young girl settler. And in the back is a woman, I guess her, probably zip-tied her hands together with a mask over her face. I don't know if they're torturing her, but, that's the kind of stuff they do, I guess, in Israel. And she's kind of, I don't even know what that symbol means. Holding up your two fingers like that. But
rock and roll.
Is it?
Yeah, rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
Mm.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's what it is. So she's thinking she's pretty cool, and they're pretty cool because they can take these defenseless people and and brutalize them, I guess. That's what it's all about. Yeah, Netanyahu, but we have a this is the video, the Netanyahu video. You guys hearing about this? Supposedly, which I don't know if it's a setup, the USA was pissed off about this because here he is crying for weapons when U.S. has only stopped one shipment. Makes you wonder what weapons were in that shipment. Otherwise, there's only all the other shipments of weapons. Israel's, been getting everything they want. And of course, they got a war coming on. They want to make total war against Lebanon very, very soon. So,
the Israeli cabinet is just, all the army stuff has just okayed the battle plan for attacking Lebanon.
Yeah, and they also, I guess, just recently bombed something in Syria, something, small bombing raid, and I don't know. They seem to be wanting to fight with everybody. But
Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel. We had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case. During World War II, Churchill told the United States, give us the tools, we'll do the job. And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job a lot faster.
Kill all the Palestinians is what he's wanting to do.
I had to stop following and covering the Israeli stuff because it's just so
sickening.
Depressing, and there's only so many dozens of mutilated toddlers and kids that you can see before you're just like, I need to check out of this. But whenever I see videos like this, the Israelis constantly demanding like X, Y, and Z from America, and if they don't, the Holocaust is going to happen. I just have to think, like, what must it be like to be Ukrainian? What must it be like to be Zelensky and to watch this and just be like, I mean, does Kiev not sort of get that you're like second, you're the second woman in this relationship?
Yeah.
Second fiddle.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
You're not the top of of the list on this one. There's another country that is one of the world's largest arms producers that is kind of above you whenever it needs military aid to bomb refugee camps in Gaza. Like, good God.
Yeah, remember when the United States, it was before this October 7th thing started, and the United States, we're out of weapons for Ukraine. We're out of weapons. That's why we have to give them cluster bombs, because we're out of all the other weapons. And then comes this, October 7th deal. All of a sudden, there's hundreds of shipments of weapons to Israel. And I was saying all along, the U.S. has lots of weapons, but they're just playing, keep away from Ukraine at that time. And then that's exactly what you were just saying there. Is I wonder what Ukraine thinks about that, when all of a sudden, magically, all of these literally hundreds of shipments of weapons going to Israel. And that's what they said, 100 secret ones, and then all the ones that are overt that everybody could see,
I don't even know, because especially after October 7th, I can distinctly remember at the time, is there was very specific allowance for monetary and ordnance to be sent to Israel on a nearly daily basis to prop up the Iron Dome. And the Iron Dome, missiles and rockets fired from Gaza are inherently a threat, but most of the time it's effectively like a bottle rocket that'll last in the desert. So, but it was just kind of the night and day how Israel needs this to shoot down bottle rockets, and no expense will be spared. But at the time, Ukraine was really running low on anti-air missiles. And I would say the threat to Ukraine at the time, coming from Russian drones and missiles, was probably a lot higher than something a bunch of, Hamas fighters cooked up in a garden shed in the south of Rafah. But yet, at the time, it was sorry, this is going to take months to get through Congress. It's just guys, whenever America has one priority whenever it comes to foreign policy, and unless you are Israeli, you are not it. That includes if you're an American as well.
Yeah, it's too bad that stranglehold that Israel has over the United States and about everything. It's and as you know, most of it is going through AIPAC, and of course there's other ways that it goes through, but we even have a
and then you had it's just
video from Tucker and Massey.
So we're now going to provide aid to the people who we are providing military aid to be bombed with. So we're going to provide the bombs that are going to bomb you, but then because we feel guilty, or rather we need to try and prop up Israel's image, is we're going to provide you humanitarian aid instead. And it just whenever those first airdrops where they were dropping the packages out the back of the airplane, out of the aircraft, and the parachutes weren't deploying properly, so they were falling on crowds of Palestinians and killing dozens of them.
Yeah.
And then you've got this farcical idea of pier, which keeps falling apart anytime there's a slight breeze. And then the Israelis use the pier to conduct special forces raids into Rafah. It's just it really tells I don't know if people are genuinely brainwashed or if they're just no, fuck it, I'm pro-Israel and the Israelis can do whatever they want, no matter what we do, is I'm going to defend it. It's just staggering how this country can act in the way it does. And I don't even consider myself necessarily anti-Zionist or anti-Israeli, but it's just it is staggering how this country can openly act to defy international law. All the way it acts with impunity, because the United States has decided we need to protect it no matter what it does and how it does it. It's just wow.
Yeah. Here's Massey, Thomas Massey.
Register. Is there any other Republican who has your views on this?
Well, I have Republicans who come to me on the floor and say, I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you.
Israeli
for
babysitter.
AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, you know, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
that's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, "I'll talk to my AIPAC person," and it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, you know, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody.
I heard it.
Why would they want to tell their constituents
Tucker, where have you been?
that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
Have you seen any other country do anything like this? Like
no.
Russia obviously determines the outcome of our elections. We keep hearing that. Does anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude.
Germany dude.
It's the only country that does this, that has somebody that uniformly.
But
I guarantee you there's some spreadsheet in AIPAC
in the election
where you know the AIPAC dude who's matched up with the congressman is there, and then all the congressman's votes on the issue. Oh, has the congressman been to Israel? They pay for trips for congressmen and their spouses to go to Israel. I'm not the only Republican who hasn't taken the AIPAC trip to Israel, but I'm probably one of a dozen that hasn't taken that trip, and the other ones just haven't got around to it.
What's the trip like? Do you know?
It's kind of like, I think, vacation-y. You go see the wall, you go see the sites, things like that.
It's such a great, I must say, it's such a great country. Jerusalem especially is just such a wonderful place that's got to have a big effect.
You go swim in the Dead Sea.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
Not on an AIPAC trip, but
right.
I would recommend it to anyone.
Are you sure it wasn't an AIPAC trip?
Paid for it myself. No, I mean, it's just funny. I mean, I am a legit lover of Israel, of the place Israel. Right. I like the people, and I love the food, and the whole thing is so great.
Look,
but that's distinct from the government of Israel, which is just a foreign government.
My sense is the people are very entrepreneurial. That
totally.
They're publicly minded. You know, they care about their country. That they're generally good people. Right.
That's certainly been my experience in trips there, for sure. It's great. It's just I think it's probably one of my favorite, maybe my all-time favorite place to go with my family. But
it was fishing.
That's just a completely different thing from taking orders from its government.
Exactly.
I have to say, back whenever I was a naive young activist involved in the Conservative Party, I was once offered a trip by a Conservative branch of Israel to go to Israel.
Ooh. Wow.
Never did it.
You haven't got an AIPAC guy.
Yeah, you need to get an AIPAC guy. Yeah. Well, I think there's probably a lot of good things about Israel, a lot of good things about Israeli people and all. It's just too bad they got that indoctrination going on, just like in Ukraine, indoctrinating their people, but I guess everybody in every country has some sort of form of getting indoctrinated a little bit. Some call it patriotism or something. George Washington threw $1 across the Delaware River or something, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. But thinking, telling your people that you are genetically superior to others, like, genetically superior to the Palestinians or genetically superior to the Russians because you're Ukrainian and you're a million years old cultural history of Ukraine that never existed, but it did exist, but it didn't. Stuff like this is incredible. Anyway.
Okay, let's try and close it out because we're going over time now.
Yeah.
Lukashenko found some more corruption, as we were saying earlier.
Oh, we didn't play that one? Good.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
So, shall we play this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is important.
Would you like to read the
Okay. Well, we'll talk a little bit about what it is. I guess they uncovered some corruption people, and then he's just talking about it. So people that were involved in corruption. There are 36 people, 36 people listed, he says. You have to excuse, I'm not an anti-Semite, but more than half of them are Jews. You know? Do they have a special privileged position here? That they steal and don't think about their future? That they can get away with it, in other words. Everyone is the same before the law. Jews, Belarusians, Ukrainians, Russians, and Poles. Yeah. Yeah, makes you wonder. You know, I didn't even really know that. I know there are Jews. I've been to a synagogue here in Grodno. As a matter of fact, I got in, and nobody else was allowed to go in there. But they said, let's sneak you in here. I think I even got film footage of it in one of my videos on Duke in Belarus. But
Pinsk had a huge Jewish community before the Great Patriotic War.
Oh, before the Ukrainians got a hold of them here.
Yeah, well, before the war.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyhow, that's pretty interesting. So Israel's calling Lukashenko an anti-Semite now because he's going to make the Jews accountable to the law like everybody else, and Jews are supposed to get off free without being prosecuted for crimes. I guess that's what Israel's trying to say. So that's about it anyway.
Okay, just got a couple of videos I want to show. I don't know if have you seen this one. I'll just show you Michael, because you got the election coming up. Who do you think's going to win in the UK?
Labour is obviously going to win a majority, but that's a given. Don't really care because Labour will come in and make the country worse off, but it's kind of perverse logic, but the worse the country gets, the better my candidate will do. So I'm obviously a big backer and fan of Nigel. I think Nigel is going to smash Clacton and hopefully completely decimate the Conservative Party. And hopefully we get those 0 seats that the Tories deserve. And then once that's done, Reform and Nigel can hopefully build up a proper actual right-wing opposition.
Do you think it'll be a hung parliament and like Nigel and maybe, I'm not sure about Galloway's party, but some other ones will hold the balance of power?
Pretty much already locked in. There's no way it's not going to be a Labour majority. So,
okay. Have you seen this video with Sunak? He's even the sheep are staying away from him.
Just get this out. How that party ever thought it was like should be country. For all the problems that Boris had, at least Boris had a bit of like charisma to him, but like Sunak was just a complete sponge.
And staying on the UK, did you see this today where they what they did to Stonehenge?
If you notice, people who actually intervened to try and stop it happen to be Chinese tourists.
Chinese tourists?
Oh, did they?
Yeah, that's a Chinese tourist trying to stop it.
Wow.
They've got security there, because when I went down to fly the drone once, there's security guys all around that area. Where were they today?
You actually see one of them come over. Like that's her there. I assume security.
She's really in a rush, though.
Yeah, and it says something that this little Chinese woman is more bigger to try and stop the destination of this, and just just so beyond. Like I'm kind of the mindset that it's just stop oil is actually funded by like the oil industry because of just how much they piss people off and turn people against their message. But it's just like if it was up to me, I'm not a Democrat. I don't really believe in liberal democracy. I think just bring on the authoritarian state. These people can be put straight to prison because they're just I don't want to call them terrorists, but like it's just I just despise them. Whenever you see videos of motorists, like beating them up because they're blocking the road or blocking ambulances and stuff. I'm just like, good on you. I remember whenever I was in London a couple of times ago, I happened to be walking just past the New Zealand embassy down consulate, High Commission down from Trafalgar Square, heading on up that road, and they were blocking the road there. And one of them came up to me, like handed me their leaflets. I just, you earned not to spit in his face. It's just like the most out of touch middle class do-goodism.
Okay, anything else, Duke?
Not really. No, I don't know. I had some videos in there, but that's not about important, I guess, because we're getting too much overtime now.
Okay. Well, Michael, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Always happy to pop along whenever I'm free.
When are you? Any idea when you're coming here?
I'm not too sure. I've got some, like I say, touch wood. Hopefully some of the things I've got cooking in the background will start coming to fruition in the next couple of months. And then one of those, which is the main thing I'm working on at the moment, if it works out, and hopefully it looks like it is, then I might be spending some time in Moscow, and then a short trip from Moscow on the train line will bring me to Minsk. So I don't have a time frame for it, but there are things working in the background.
Yeah, just to let you know that the idea, if you have a Belarusian visa or a Moscow visa or Russian visa, and you can come visit each country, it's still not in. They put it off again until September this year.
So, I'll not be getting over before September, but that way.
Yeah, I just thought I'd let you know because that's what's going on. It was supposed to happen in January this year, and they put it off again. So there you go. Okay, thanks, mate, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. Happy to be here, and thanks for having me. And hope you enjoyed it. And speak to you again soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Speak to you soon.
Okay, hang on. Let's do us. There we are. It's just us.
Oh, no.
It's just us. Oh. Do you want to run through, you don't see that in Belarus? Quick?
Yeah, maybe.
I've only got a few videos. And we've got a naked one for you.
Yeah, naked videos. Okay, people. Let's do it.
I have to get off YouTube because of these.
Oh, that's right. So go to Rumble, people.
Rolf, can you put the Rumble address in the YouTube chat, please?
Or is it Ralph? Is it Ralph?
Either of them.
Either of them. You guys both know that address, right?
Step towards the unknown.
Or maybe Rob.
And we're not done making